Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's Ray from ZapSec. Today, I'm going to be talking about a similar migration scenario that we've talked about, migrating to Auth0. Except today, we're going to be talking about migrating from a legacy database to Auth0. So, our previous videos have been tied into migrating off Azure AD B2C for a plethora of reasons, regarding increased developer velocity. And so on that we've talked about. Now today we're talking about migrating from actually a legacy DB where an enterprise may just be storing their users via legacy DB on-prem. They may have their own OAuth kind of artifact that they've built for their own user base. But now, with scaling and everything, they're trying to offset those capabilities to a CIAM platform, and that's where Auth0 comes in very well. It gives them developer flexibility, compliance guarantees, and scalability across their user base as they continue to migrate. A key part of today's demo is that we will be seeing a migration with actual hashed passwords for the user. Okay, so we're going to be, in our previous demos, we had to migrate with a random password. Today, we're going to be migrating with hash passwords. So let me go ahead and dive right in. Okay. To reiterate, we are staying in the zero lockouts pillar because we are talking about bulk migration. Right, we're talking about modernizing from a legacy database to Auth0, and we're in the bulk migration path, and we have hashed passwords, so we have access to the user's hashed passwords. So we're gonna migrate directly with the password hashes. Right now, again, this legend I've shown in the other videos, but basically we've grouped our focus into a couple decision trees here. And today, the ones we'll be focused on is zero lockouts and lower fraud, higher trust. So, our decision is how do we migrate users? The option we're showing is bulk. And the KPI that we're measuring is we want to migrate, 95% of our user base before go live. But again, today we're just showing that we're in the bulk pillar. And, for baseline authentication strength, we're going to be showing that, there is passwordless eligibility. So we will be logging in still with the user's password, but passkey is going to get prompted on login. And that's because of the passkey policy that we have set in Auth0 that we will take a look at in a second before running an actual demo. Okay. And so, we're going to be again in today's demo. I've showed this architecture diagram before. This is basically a combination of bulk and just-in-time strategies as a migration effort to Auth0. And today we're going to be in this line right here, this black line. I should have made this purple. Um, basically it's purple, right? So it's pretty much the same now, right? It's the purple path, so we're still bulk migrating, but as you can see, we're bulk migrating with legacy hashed passwords. In this path, this is the one where we showed in our previous demo, we bulk migrated with random passwords. That's because we had to migrate from Azure AD B2C. Now, this line right here should actually be it should actually be a database, right? So we're migrating from a legacy database. So I'll go ahead and put I'll put a database icon right here, right? So whoops, make it go right here, and we'll just kind of pull this down like this, right? So this purple path right here is bulk migrating via legacy hash passwords from an actual database. Okay, so in this case, we were migrating from Azure AD B2C. This case, we're migrating off a legacy database. And so this is part of a modernization effort. And so we're going to be migrating with legacy hash passwords. And again, same business impact. We're able to have a segmented migration where we can migrate with wave groups while our legacy DB is still serving our users, right, before go live, migrate all our, in wave groups, and, time to productivity, right? So day one access, risk is reduced a ton, and we have visibility with custom attributes that we can track to see which users have actually logged in for the first time or whatnot, right? And so let's dive right in. So what I'm going to show here is in Auth0, I want to show something real quick. So, the previous connection we used was this connection right here. I've made a duplicate connection. However, in this connection, you'll see that I've turned use my own database off. So to use passkeys, this cannot be toggled on. That means none of our database action scripts, right? The code that we were running in our other B2C migrated users V2 database, right? That was actually doing the ROPC authentication. That's how we were able to do the migration strategies with random passwords. But we're simulating a migration with hashed passwords, right? So if I go to the users data.json file, I'm simulating one user. Obviously, you would put multiple users here in production, but Billy is my one user, right? And so I put his password hash in here. You would be just extracting this from a legacy DB and password hash in here. I have Billy's actual password, so I would enter the clear text password. Auth0 never sees the clear text password. It just stores the hash. The clear text password is hashed and then compared to the hashed password that Auth0 will store once we migrate this and Auth0 has this information, right? So we have to turn this toggle on right here. Uh, we have to turn okay. Okay. So we have to turn this toggle off. Okay, so we disable passkeys for now. Then we're going to turn the toggle on for use my own database. And we're going to turn import users to Auth0 on. So we only have use my own database on so that we can have import users to Auth0 on, right? So as part of this, the other scripts are taken away. And now we're basically simply just bulk migrating our users, uh, right? We're bulk migrating our users now. Okay. Um, Let me go ahead and stop the recording here for a sec. One sec. Okay. So, again, we've disabled the passkey, right? So when we first migrate our users, we need to disable the passkey connection. And then we've turned use my own database on, and we have import users to Auth0 on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bulk migrate this user Billy like we've been doing. Okay. So I'm going to run uh, uh, well, first thing I'm going to do is run .NET clean because I've changed some stuff. I'll run .NET build. Cool. And then let me run whoops, .NET run dash dash one. Okay, we can see here, like, what we always see, it starts the Auth0 import job. Right? So, and like we've seen this before, right? It's submitting it on based on this connection. This connection, we've changed it to be our B2C migrated users connection. So now, if we click on refresh right here, we'll go ahead and see Billy was landed in, right? So Billy, I didn't show it before, but Billy did not exist in here. Billy just landed in right now. Okay. So migration status is pending on Billy. We won't be seeing this in this demo right now. What we would do is for these hashed passwords users, we would have a MFA action. We would basically have a post login action that basically detects when this user signs in for the first time. We would change migration status to completed. I don't have that right now, but that's what we would do in production. We can see that this user basically just got created right now. Okay, now in production, we've basically simulated, our basically, we have a legacy database, right? So our legacy database is still serving our users right now. And in the back end, over 4, 5, 6 months, depending on how many users we're migrating, right? We would migrate in wave groups. And we've migrated with these settings, right? With use import users to Auth0 on. Now that we're confident that we've migrated 90 to 95% of our user base, right? So remember, our KPIs to 95% pre-create our bulk migrated user base. Once we're sure we've done that, then what we would do is we would turn import users to Auth0 off. We can now turn use my own database off. Okay, this is an issue. It will not let me turn use my own database off because it says that this database already contains users. Okay, one sec. Yeah, back. We're back here. So we've encountered a limitation that basically happens in production. So when we're migrating our users from legacy database to Auth0, we need to have a database connection. We just simulated this with B2C migrated users. We need to have a database connection where we have use my own database on so that import users to Auth0, we can turn that on and we can get our users migrated in here. So now we've migrated our users with our hash passwords. However, a limitation Auth0 has is that um, passkey cannot be enabled, right? So passkey cannot be enabled for users um, when you have import users to Auth0 off, right? So if I want to turn use my own database to off, I can't do that because I migrated my users. Um, I migrated my users inside this connection. So in production, enterprises would have to cut over, their users from the connection that they just migrated into a fresh connection, which has used my own database off from the very start, where you can enable passkeys, and the passkey can now be set up through this connection. So in production, we would not want to force password resets. Instead, we would do progressive re-registration. So each a successful login, every successful login in this migration connection would trigger automation that would create the user in this native passkey enabled connection. Okay. And so for this demo, I'm going to be using this connection, right? So for this demo, uh, I'm going to be I'm going to go to my applications first. I'm going to go to my web application, which is simulating this is simulating my Spring Boot application, right? Which we're going to see in my local host. I'm going to go to connections and I'm going to turn this toggle off and I'm going to turn this toggle on. So this is the native passkey database connection. And we're basically simulating that we've both migrated our users from our legacy database into this connection, but now we want our passkey toggle to be on. So we want to turn use my own database off, right? So that Auth0 will authenticate with its own hashed password, right? And so to do that, we will need to, put them in this native database with that never had used my own database on. And so once we do that, what I'm going to show in this demo is I'm going to manually create a user here. So I'm going to create a user, and I'm going to create him in this connection right here. So this would be simulating where a user was created in the original connection and some automation would create him in production. So we're going to simulate with the same user. We're going to create Billy right here. We don't have to give this. Just going to enter a random password for Billy, and I'm going to click on create. Okay. And Billy gets created. We can see that Billy gets created inside this connection. Okay. We can set some, that's fine. That's fine, right? Billy gets created. And so now, if I open a incognito window right here, open localhost 8080, right? Click on sign in with Auth0, right? Our sign in screen comes up. So now if I try to sign in with Billy, what we will see is that it asks for the password. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and authenticate with Billy. Um, our MFA enrollment runs because we still have our post login action running, right? So to show this really quickly, we still have our in our action, right? Our actions, our triggers. In our post login, we still have our MFA setup. We're doing MFA setup in here. And so that is still running. So I'm going to go ahead and click on continue. I'm going to enroll MFA for this user. So like any user, they would scan that QR code. I'm going to go ahead and enter that code in my Authenticator app, click on continue, and you can see now that the passkey is coming up, okay? Create a passkey for B2C on this, right? So, and the way that passkey is coming up is on the database connection, right? On our database connection, if we go in authentication methods and we click, passkey is now enabled. If we click on configure, We have a couple of things here for the passkey policy. Passkey. So we have our passkey challenge. So we have a couple options. Either we can allow users to start passkey authentication using autofill, or we can allow a button that the user has to click, or we allow both options. So we're right now, both options would be allowed for the user. We have progressive enrollment, which means that the passkey would be enrolled after the user authenticates with their password and MFA enrollment and everything that has to occur. Passkey will be like basically a last option to reduce friction and for every login, if even if if they don't set it right, if they continue without passkeys, it would come up unless they obviously click on don't show me this again, right? And for local enrollment for passkeys, this basically helps for, let's say if they set up a passkey originally on their phone, but then they logged in with their laptop and they don't have a passkey set up on that. When you have this toggle enabled, it'll prompt them to set up a passkey on their laptop as well, okay? And so I'm going to click on create a passkey. Again, this is FIDO2 working, so Auth0 is initiating a WebAuthn request right there, and device binding happens, and you can see I get redirected. I don't have any claims right here, but I get redirected right here. Okay, back to my app, and now I've had passkey. I've had Authenticator app set up. I've had a passkey set up for my bulk migrated user, and he can log in with this hashed password, right? And so this basically simulated a zero lockout. Okay, so this simulated zero lockouts. We're migrating users, we're bulk migrating users, and we're migrating them with their actual hashed passwords in legacy database. So they log in as is. Okay, we will see, in a separate video, if they forget their password, then password recovery will happen. But right now, there's no credential, there's no API validation. So this is the least amount of downtime. No APIs can go down because no APIs are running. This is their actual password that we've migrated. We've bulk migrated our users. We've shown MFA has been everywhere in baseline strength. MFA still happens because of our action. And we also showed that passwordless eligibility also happens. And we talked about a constraint of Auth0 where we had to create a new database connection, right? We had to create a new database connection uh to get to because once we once we have this database connection where we've used use my own database on passkeys is a little bit difficult to use then, right? If we turn import to users to Auth0 off, it will not allow us to do this, right? Use my own database must be disabled. Okay. um and we can disable that because, once you've migrated users into a connection with use my own database, it will not allow you to disable that toggle. Okay. Now, Auth0 has this internal boundary, right, where you need to move these users inside a native database native database connection where you do not have this toggle use my own database on. And that can reduce some increased work for enterprises, right? Enterprises have to now introduce some type of native automation or some, either through actions, or they would implement something more, more reliable, like Azure Service Bus or something like that, where it would be like a pub sub model, and you would move your users in here every time they log in. Successfully, you would move them in here. But that is additional work for enterprises, right? Um, and so, in a real rollout, organizations would have to handle this in these types of ways. Um, and this is where I want to end the video with what we'll see in the next video, with a product called Auth0. Okay, so Auth0 is a product that basically enforces passkeys, they enforce MFA, and they add a bunch of security signals, and they have a native integration with Auth0. Okay, and so they have a lot of things you can do in here. You can configure actions in here, and you have all types of telemetry and rules you can add in here, right? You can add rules in here for all different types of outcomes, for different sessions, devices, agents, and you can note with low code you can choose certain features, and Auth0 can take care of the passkey setup now. So now, instead of having to rely on connection cutovers, right, into a new connection, Auth0 right? Auth signal as a product would now allow Azure ADB2C, sorry, it would allow Auth0 only be an IDP, and now Auth signal would enforce passkeys and adaptive MFA. We would still set up the Authenticator app MFA, but passkeys would not be set up because the users would stay in here. Auth0 would continue to authenticate and issue tokens, while Auth signal provides decision intelligence, like when to step up, when to allow, and how to introduce passwordless without disrupting migration flows. And if there's no vendor lock-in, because if an enterprise was ever to move away from Auth signal, let's say they, were migrating off Auth signal and they didn't want to use it anymore, they could then have the use case to take these users and bring them to a native connection where now Auth0 can handle the passkey setup for the users now. So they always have that still available to them. But Auth signal helps because it gives fewer phases, it gives fewer edge cases, and it gives a smoother CIAM modernization journey. And if an organization ever chooses to move away, again, they can still be cleanly migrated into a native Auth0 connection later. Okay, so um, I hope this helped. We saw zero lockouts and lower fraud, higher trust pillar-based demo today. Auth0 modernization from a legacy database with MFA and passkey setup. And again, we were in the passkeys way, and then in the next demo, we would see auth signal. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.